Okay guys, welcome to Module 1. In this module, our expert will be teaching you about hiring permanent virtual team members. So get ready to take some notes and let's jump right in.
Okay, so when we're looking at hiring permanent employees, whether full-time or part-time, the two main countries that come to mind are India and the Philippines. Now, these are both also a good source of freelancers, by all means. However, these are also very popular for full-time staff because of how cost-effective they are and how much money you can save as a company by outsourcing to these countries. So, developers and programmers in India are going to run you $1,500 and up. Designers, $1,300. SEO specialists, 1,000. Social media managers, 1,000. General virtual assistants, 1,000. And customer support, $1,000 and up. That's still very cost effective, but it's not quite as cost effective as the Philippines. As you can see, the Philippines, things are even less expensive. Programmers, $500. Designers, $400. SEO specialists, $400. $300 for social media managers, $350 for general virtual assistants. Customer support, $300 to $600. I mean, it's a no-brainer, especially that last one. Now, the reason for the price difference is really just the power of the dollar. In the Philippines, the buying power of the dollar goes much further. So these, although they look incredibly small to us, are actually comfortable salaries in the Philippines, depending on age and where in the Philippines you live and that sort of thing, cost of living. However, generally speaking, the dollar goes much further in the Philippines, and also there's obviously a difference in demand, okay? India is very sought after by companies all over the world for outsourcing, okay? And obviously demand drives up price a bit too, whereas the Philippines is until recently, until just a few years ago, was sort of an unknown gem. And I say gem because in the Philippines, they actually speak better English than in India. In the Philippines, it's one of their official languages, and you can tell because they all sound 100% fluent. It's crazy. I personally didn't realize this before looking into the matter. In the Philippines, even the accent is barely noticeable. It sounds, if anything, some people confuse it with a Latino American accent sometimes, a first-generation Latino American maybe. Okay, there might be a little bit of a Southern Californian twang sometimes. It's been referred to as that as far as their accent is concerned. So the accent is very, very minimal. Grammar is just about perfect. Honestly, the most common grammar mistakes among Filipinos is more or less the same mistakes that you'll notice among young Americans, okay? And usually you only notice that in written content. So Philippines are an absolute gold mine for outsourcing, especially now that their workforce over the last 10 years or so are becoming much more technically skilled on all these different online types of tasks. So now they can do pretty much everything that folks in India can do at a much lower price, and there's no language barrier. There's no stigma about the accent if you're doing customer service over the phone. All right. Obviously, that's totally unjustified and not okay that there's a stigma about the Indian accent when customers call customer support. However, that stigma does exist. It's a well-known stigma, and it's a reality that you have to deal with as a business owner. In the Philippines, there is no such accent, and there's no stigma, therefore, associated with phone support. So cheaper, better English, and more or less the same skill sets. So that's why we're going to be focusing primarily on the Philippines in this video when we're looking at hiring permanent employees, okay? Now, if you do decide you want to check out India, India is still an incredibly cost-effective place. There's a very skilled workforce, very dedicated people there. It's a great place to outsource to, and if you prefer to do that, there's a lot of different avenues for that. One example would be virtual employee, and there's lots of companies just like this. You can just Google outsource to India. And you'll find companies that will basically do the recruiting and the hiring and the vetting and the filtering for you to make sure that you get good employees. However, obviously, if you use a service like this, there's going to be a bit of a premium tacked on in addition to what you'll be paying as a salary to the workers. Okay, so just be aware of that. But I would say it's probably worth it, okay, to get it right the first time and have someone who is experienced in doing this type of vetting and recruiting do this for you. Now, the next thing I want to look at, and the place we're going to spend most of our time, is onlinejobs.ph. Onlinejobs.ph is an incredible resource. It's a great place to save a little bit of money while you're doing your recruiting, meaning you're not paying a premium for your workers on top of their salaries because you're doing the actual vetting and the filtering yourself. You're just paying a monthly fee or a quarterly fee here for however long you need to do your recruiting operations. It's really a great deal. It's a great way to tap into the Filipino outsourcing or business process outsourcing market. And there's a few different ways to use this site to find the perfect permanent long-term team member. As you can see, there are an absolute ton of job posts here. This is a very happening market, okay? And the people who are signed up here, the Filipino workers who are signed up looking for work here, are very active in checking here. We've got 7,000 job posts for writing, 22,000 job posts for English-related work, web development, finance and management, WordPress, PHP programming, customer service, very big one. Professional services, graphics and multimedia, very talented people in the Philippines in these areas. Sales and marketing, project management. You can even find people in leadership and management positions to take even more of the load off of your shoulders, which is essentially what you're doing when you're hiring full-time employees. Okay, let's just for grins, project management sounds like an interesting one. Let's do a search for PMP and see what comes up. So we've got PMP. So here we have a whole, let's see, what do we got here? 29 search results for project managers. These are people who are able to fill actual management and leadership positions in your company. And we're looking at, on average here, it looks like around $1,000. I saw one up here for close to $2,000. I mean, that's pretty significant, guys. Okay, for someone who can actually take that level of weight off your shoulders, so you can actually count on to be a leader and a manager. Okay, over here, what do we got? I saw the word process executive, senior process executive. Someone who's actually handling things, doing the collaboration and the communication for you so that you don't have to. This is pretty significant that even this level of expertise exists on this website. However, most people don't come here looking for this type of thing. Most people come here for the more standard suite of skills. Let's do a search for content writer. Philippines are well known for their English skills, so let's leverage that and have somebody from the Philippines actually writing our social media content, our blog content. Wouldn't that be great to get off your chest? Content is just a pain in the butt, isn't it? Let's see here. $291 to $388. That's the desired salary for an experienced writer here. Consider that for a moment. Paying someone just a few $100s a month and knowing that every week you're going to get, 3 or 4 blog posts published on your blog. Content published to social media. Maybe even having marketing emails written. It depends on their skill set. You've got to interview these people. But you've got to understand the value of that for just a few $100. How much weight does that take off of your shoulders? Freelance SEO writer. This guy knows how to write in a way that's optimized for search engine ranking. SEO-based articles. $485 to $582. I mean, that's a hell of a deal. Got another one down here. Just under $600 for content creator. You'll notice a lot of these people have 3 or 4 different skills that they've developed working online. And that's another thing to consider as well. How much of a workload can you pass off to your team if you can actually have multiple people handling multiple jobs per person? So this is a great way to search out people who are already qualified for the skills that you have. However, the most common way to approach recruiting on onlinejobs.ph is filling out an actual job posting. So I'm going to click this Post a Job button here. And we're going to pretend that we are looking for a software developer, okay? And I actually have at my disposal a very cool program called Startup Bootstrapped, which is run by a guy named Mark Thompson. And they have all sorts of training and resources specifically on the recruiting process for software people. So if you're getting into software and you need people who can develop, who can design UIs, who can get into the back end and do all the magical things that they do in the back end, this would be a very cool resource to check out. And I'm actually going to be utilizing one of the done for you job postings right here, because personally, I'm not a specialist in back-end software development or web development. So I don't really know how to write the perfect job posting, okay? So I'm going to leverage this asset here and just paste that here. Let's have a look here. So we're looking for a back-end web developer. Let me actually change the name accordingly. And the job description right here basically explains that we need someone who's able to do back-end stuff, okay, back-end development, but still be able to communicate and collaborate with the front-end people, which means the designers, the people making the UI, the people who make things look pretty on the front end, as well as with customers, okay. Let's see here. Basic understanding of front-end technologies is therefore necessary as well. It's important. What you're looking for: 5 years of experience, back-end development, want to transform big visual ideas into flawless functionality. So someone who can look at the desired idea, the desired outcome for the software and say, I know how to make that happen. I can actually design the functionality or develop the functionality on the back end. Okay, passionate about learning from your coworkers, improving your skills, communicating your choices to the internal. So, I mean, you're basically listing a lot of traits that you want people to have. Okay, you want people reading this application and saying, is that me? Okay, a geek about process, streamlining, sharpening how you approach. You're also setting these people up for success by telling them what your standards are. You're expecting people to be enthusiastic about these different types of traits and characteristics. Okay, and these different behaviors. Essential job functions. Much of your work at Pay Kickstart, since we're getting that from, like I said, Mark Thompson, who runs Pay Kickstart. I'll just say X for now. Much of your work will be contributing to improve on the features and functionality of existing applications. Don't rule yourself out if you don't have all the skills and experience we mentioned. We look for passionate, driven people who care about improving their craft every day. That's important, okay? Now, that's optional. It's obviously going to depend on your needs. If you need somebody who's absolutely ready to go and knows everything, make that clear. However, if you're open to people who are not quite at that level, okay, but, for the sake of being cost effective or whatever, you're still willing to have them come on board and be trained by you or their fellow team members and get better, then by all means put that in here. You'll get more applications that way, right? And finally, we've got in bullet point format here a list of all the things that they need to be able to do. Design and implementation of data storage solutions, the optimization of the application for maximum speed, building reusable codes and libraries for future use. Once again, I'm not a programmer, so I don't understand what half of this stuff means. Same thing for desired qualifications. Basic understanding of front-end technologies and platforms, CSS preprocessors, Laravel framework. See, I can't even pronounce the words in here. But you need to know what you're looking for, and you need to communicate very clearly to the potential applicant what the things are that you're looking for. And of course, you're outsourcing to somebody on the other side of the world. So this job requires routine desk and computer work. No travel is required. Okay, now based on that chart we were looking at earlier, a web developer, a back-end programmer in the Philippines, $550 to $1,300. Let's just say $600 a month. Type of employment, full-time, permanent team member. Okay, ID proof. On onlinejobs.ph, this basically means the minimum amount. Basically, they get a score for all the different types of things they upload to the website, such as a driver's license, proof of past work experience, that type of stuff. And it's not the end of the world if they have a slightly lower ID proof. However, it's recommended that you try to filter applicants who have a higher ID proof score on onlinejobs.ph. Now, the skill section down here is pretty important. However, you don't want to overdo it. Okay, because you want to make sure that you're getting the people who have the skills that you need. You don't want to add a bunch of extra ones, because if you add, like, let's say, okay, writing and speaking English is very important. Okay, well, if people don't really have that particular skill or writing, we need people to be able to do, technical writing, web content writing. If you add a bunch of irrelevant stuff, although it sounds cool, you're going to be filtering out people who might be rock stars at the main thing that you need. Okay, so it's best just to grab a few specific things. So for us, we're going to be looking at software development and programming, right? We could grab all of the relevant ones that we might need. I don't know what half of these things mean because I'm not a programmer. However, you want to basically focus on just the handful of things that you absolutely, definitely need. So for ours, for example, I know I remember seeing PHP, JavaScript, Laravel. Those sound pretty familiar. WordPress development, you could click if you need somebody who knows WordPress. So anyway, the point is, just choose the handful of skills that are specifically directly relevant and necessary for the job posting. Don't go crazy, otherwise you'll be filtering out a lot of people who might actually be absolute rock stars, okay? That's about it for hiring full-time permanent employees. Once again, lots of options out there. You don't have to go to the Philippines. If you do go to the Philippines, however, onlinejobs.ph is a fantastic place to do it, both for searching people by resume and posting jobs. And you can expect a whole lot of responses to an application on onlinejobs.ph. And of course, the next step would be inviting them to a Skype conversation, for example, or a chat conversation, where you actually interview the ones who you feel are qualified based on what you're looking for. Okay, and make sure you actually have a set of questions ready to interview these people on the spot and see which ones are going to progress to the next level. And eventually, you'll hopefully narrow down one person who you want to hire. And always keep a Rolodex. If you had a couple of rock stars and you just couldn't hire them, okay, let's say you've only got one position for one person, keep a Rolodex and contact them later if work opens up. That's always a good idea as well. But that sums up hiring full-time permanent employees.